Good morning, Jackson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining Michael and I on the Deconstruction podcast. We will jump straight in to an introduction to who you are and what you do. So, who is Jackson Hills and what is your role at Q Shelter?
Well, first of all, thank you both for having me on the podcast. I think it's a terrific medium that you've created for these conversations. My name's Jackson Hills and I work with Q Shelter or Queensland Shelter. And we are the state peak body for affordable housing and also specialist homelessness services. So two streams of activity that obviously relate to one another very closely. We represent around 100 community housing providers right across Queensland, so they deliver low-cost housing, and about 200 specialist service providers that help people that are doing it tough in our community. Been doing that for the last couple of years, and I've got a much more interesting history prior to that, but 2 years in our sector working on this issue every day.
And so when you say that Q Shelter represents those bodies, you work closely with them, have meetings with them. How do you represent them?
Yeah, so effectively the way Q Shelter works as a peak body is we operate at the system level, right? So the housing system is very much a system. It's got probably a broken system at the moment that you've been discussing on some of your other podcast episodes. But we represent, all those providers in their conversations with government around the types of resourcing and funding they need to really target that into their communities. Understanding sort of different trends that are happening across different cohorts. So it might be youth, it might be First Nations people, for example. It might be people living with a disability, it might be mature age women. So understanding the nuance in the housing system and representing those nuances to government policymakers and other investment partners. We also work on building the capacity and resilience of our sector. So this is not a sector that we want to be here for 5 years. We want it to be here for the next 500 years, really, helping people in need. Hopefully we don't need to provide the sort of crisis support we currently provide at the same level into the future. Hopefully we can prevent some of these issues from happening in the future. But at the moment, as I think you're quite aware and your listeners would be, we've never seen the housing environment so severe in Queensland than it is right now.